Myra didn't mean to wander far. The forest was just behind the lake, and the noise from the other kids felt too loud, too fake. While they laughed and splashed, she drifted toward the trees, drawn by something quieter, something sadder. She stepped over a mossy log, her boots sinking slightly into the damp earth. That's when she heard it, faint, broken like a whimper. It wasn't the wind. It was coming from behind the rocks. "Hello?" Myra called out, her voice barely above a whisper. No answer. Just another soft cry, like something was hurting. She hesitated, glancing back toward the campsite. Then she stepped closer. Behind a cluster of jagged rocks and a nest of dead leaves lay a tiny wolf cub. Its fur was matted with dirt. One paw was swollen and bloody, and its eyes, one was clouded over like smoke behind glass. The other, golden and clear, stared straight at her. Myra dropped to her knees. "Oh my God," she breathed. "You're just a baby." The cub didn't growl, didn't run. It just let out a weak yelp and tried to shift away, but its injured leg gave out. Myra reached slowly into her hoodie pocket, pulling out the crust from her sandwich. She broke off a piece and slid it toward the cub. "Here, it's okay. I won't hurt you." The cub sniffed, hesitated, then gobbled the bread like it hadn't eaten in days. Myra's heart squeezed. She looked around. No sign of a mother. No other movement in the trees. "Where's your family?" she asked softly. "Why are you alone?" The cub whimpered again. Myra did the only thing that felt right. She unzipped her hoodie, tucked the cub gently inside, and pulled the fabric tight around them both. Its tiny body trembled against her chest. Back at the lake, kids were lining up for canoe races. No one noticed Myra slip behind the cabins, heading for her bunk. She moved quickly, avoiding the chaperones. Inside the cabin, Myra closed the door and dropped to her knees, carefully placing the cub on her sleeping bag. It curled instantly, breathing shallow and fast. She reached into her bag and pulled out her water bottle. Unscrewing the cap, she dipped her fingers in and let the drops fall onto the cub's mouth. It licked them weakly. "You poor thing," Myra whispered. "What happened to you?" There was a knock on the door. "Myra! You coming to the campfire?" She jumped. Yeah. Just changing my shoes." Her heart pounded as footsteps faded. She locked the door. Turning back, she watched the cub. Its ear twitched. Its breath was slow, like sleep. But even asleep, it looked scared. That night, while the other kids roasted marshmallows and told ghost stories, Myra sat in the dark with the cub. She named him Ash, for the color of his fur, for the sadness in his eyes. He didn't make a sound, but he didn't look away from her either. "I don't know what to do with you," she whispered, "but I'm not leaving you here." She pulled out her old backpack, lined the bottom with a towel, and carefully lifted Ash inside. He didn't resist. He just curled up tighter. "I'll take you home," Myra said. "I'll figure it out. I promise." She lay down beside the pack, one hand resting gently on the lump of fur outside. The wind moved through the trees like a whisper. Myra closed her eyes. She didn't know it yet, but that promise would become everything. Myra kept her hoodie zipped up tight as she walked back to the group. The cub's tiny heartbeat thumped against her chest. She held her breath every time someone got close. At the fire pit, Mr. Jensen was handing out marshmallows. "You missed dinner, Myra. Everything okay?" "Yeah," she said quickly. "Just needed air." He nodded and turned away. Myra backed off, pretending to tie her shoelace, then slipped away toward her cabin. Once inside, she locked the door, yanked off her hoodie, and laid the cub gently on her pillow. Ash was barely moving. He curled his body tighter, nose tucked under his tail. Myra crouched beside him, whispering, "You're safe now." She pulled out the last of her sandwich, tore it into soft bits, and fed them to him one by one. There's not much, she said, but tomorrow I'll get more. Ash chewed slowly. He looked up at her with that one clear eye. Outside, the wind picked up. A branch scraped against the window. Myra flinched. She closed the blinds and sat beside her bed, arms wrapped around her knees. She didn't know what she was doing, just that she had to do something. Later that night, while the other girls whispered and laughed in their bunks, Myra slipped back into the cabin. She pretended to be tired and skipped the ghost story circle. Ash was hidden in her backpack, zipped halfway open, but he was whining, soft, high-pitched, constant. She begged, "Please stop. They'll hear you." He didn't stop. Across the room, someone sat up. What was that? Myra froze. Did you guys hear that squeaking? It's probably a squirrel or something. Someone mumbled. No, it sounded like crying. Myra faked a cough. That was me. Sorry, I've got allergies. There was silence. Then giggles. Don't die, Myra, one girl joked. We still need your s'mores. Laughter filled the room again. But Myra didn't laugh. She turned toward her bag. Heart racing. Ash was panting now. His tiny paws twitched. His nose bled slightly. Oh no, she whispered. She reached into the bag and gently held him close. I'm sorry, okay? You'll be okay. The next morning, Myra woke up early, before anyone else stirred. She wrapped Ash in a towel and stuffed him deep in her backpack, careful not to zip it too tight. She tiptoed out the cabin door, past the mess hall, and toward the back of the lodge where no one ever went. There, behind the dumpsters, she fed him leftover toast she'd swiped from breakfast trays. You have to be quiet tonight, she said softly. I can't get caught. Ash licked her hand once, then curled up again. Myra knew it was getting harder. His injury wasn't healing. His breathing was fast and uneven. She tried to think. She couldn't leave him in the woods. Couldn't give him to a ranger. And she definitely couldn't tell any adults. What do I do with you? She whispered. Ash opened his eye, blinked slowly, then looked away. When she returned to her group, Mr. Jensen was scanning the area. Myra, he said, where were you just now? Bathroom, she lied. Felt sick last night. He studied her face for a moment, then sighed. You okay, kid? She nodded. Yeah. But inside, she was anything but okay. That night, Ash cried again. Louder. Myra, one girl called across the room. Do you have a pet mouse in your bag or something? Myra clutched the backpack closer. No, just my stuff. Then what's that sound? Myra stood. It's my alarm. I use a weird one. Makes squirrel noises. Laughter again. You're so weird, Myra. She didn't answer. She just lay back down, hand pressed over the bag, trying to calm the little life inside it. I won't let them take you, she whispered, no matter what. The promise in her voice was quiet, but it was real. If you feel connected to this story, please like, share, and let me know your city or country below. Myra didn't speak a word during the 2-hour ride home. Her backpack sat on her lap the whole time. Every bump in the road made Ash shift, but he didn't cry. Not anymore. He was too weak. As soon as they got home, she went straight to her room and locked the door. She laid Ash on a folded blanket, trying not to cry. His breathing was shallow, his injured paw swollen. She could see patches of fur missing now. She knew this was beyond her. So she did the only thing that made sense. She called Dr. Ellis. He was the only person she trusted. Dr. Ellis had known her since she was little. He treated farm animals, cats, dogs, once even a deer hit by a car. He didn't ask questions. Can you come now? Myra whispered into the phone. It's an emergency. He didn't hesitate. Give me 20 minutes. When he arrived, Myra led him through the back door, careful not to wake her mom. In her room. He knelt beside the blanket and looked at the bundle of fur. His brow creased. What is it? he asked softly. A wolf, she said. I found him in the forest. He was alone. Dr. Ellis didn't scold her. He just opened his bag and started checking the cub's pulse, breathing, reflexes. Where's the injury? His paw, she said, pointing. And he cries all night. Dr. Ellis examined the paw gently, his fingers pressing with care. Ash flinched, but didn't growl. Then he reached for his portable scanner. I want to check for infection, he explained. Sometimes internal damage doesn't show on the outside. The scanner buzzed quietly as he passed it over the cubs. Small body, but then it beeped. Dr. Ellis stopped. His hand froze mid-air. Myra leaned forward. What's wrong? He didn't answer at first. He reset the scanner, tried again. It beeped again, right over Ash's chest. Dr. Ellis sat back, slowly. His eyes didn't leave the screen. Myra, he said quietly. This isn't normal. She felt her stomach drop. What do you mean? There's something under his skin. Metal. Not a bullet. Not a shard. It's shaped too clean. Like what? She whispered. He looked at her, his face pale. Like a chip. Ash whimpered, as if hearing it. Wait, Myra said, shaking her head. You mean like a microchip? Yes, but not the kind we use for pets. He pulled out a syringe. I'm giving him a mild sedative. I need to see exactly what we're dealing with. Mira bit her lip. Will it hurt him? No, he promised. He's safe with me. Ash's breathing slowed after the injection. He closed his eyes. Dr. Ellis picked up a small blade. I'm just making a tiny incision to check. Mira turned away, but she didn't leave. Minutes passed. Then came the soft sound of tweezers. Dr. Ellis gasped. She spun around. What did you find? He held up a tiny object. Silver, smooth. It had black etching on the side, numbers, and something that looked like a logo. Myra stepped closer. What is that? Dr. Ellis didn't answer right away. He turned it in his hand, stared at it like it didn't make sense. I've only seen something like this once, he finally said. Years ago, it was in a report, military testing. Something about behavioral tracking in animals. Myra's eyes widened. But he's just a cub. That's what makes it worse, he murmured. Someone tagged him before he ever saw the wild. She felt cold. So, he was born in a lab? Maybe, or captured too young. Ash stirred slightly, but didn't wake. Dr. Ellis placed the chip into a small vial. I'll run tests, quietly. Mira sat beside Ash and gently touched his fur. He's not a weapon, she said. He's scared. He's just a baby. I know, Dr. Ellis said. But whoever did this, they won't stop looking. Myra looked up. What if they already are? He paused. Has anything strange happened since you found him? She nodded slowly. There was a van near our campsite, just parked. A man inside. He never moved. Doctor. Ellis stood, suddenly alert. This has to stay between us, he said. No one can know about him. Not yet. I wasn't going to tell anyone anyway, Myra said. I promised I'd protect him. He looked at her, the worry plain on his face. Then you better be ready, because now we're in the middle of something big. And Ash, still asleep, twitched in his blanket, as if he already knew. Ash was still sedated, resting on the towel-covered exam table. Mira sat right beside him, her fingers barely touching his ear. His breath came slow, steady. But Myra's mind was racing. Dr. Ellis returned with the X-ray film. He slid it into the viewer, and the image glowed on the wall. There, he said, pointing at the left side of Ash's ribs. You see that? Mira stepped closer. It looks like a square? It's a chip, he said, but not the kind we use for pets. Her stomach tightened. Then what kind is it? He crossed his arms, his face grim. This isn't wildlife tagging. This is military grade. Mira, I don't even know how a wolf cub ends up with this, unless it was meant for something else. She stared at the glowing screen. So, someone was watching him? Or planning to control him, Dr. Ellis said quietly. These chips aren't just for location. They can send signals, stimuli, commands. Myra shook her head. He's a baby. Why would anyone do that to a baby? I wish I knew. She looked back at Ash. He was alone in the forest, hurt, scared. That thing was inside him the whole time? Dr. Ellis nodded. And if he hadn't cried when you found him, they might have come back. Myra's voice dropped. Maybe they still will. He walked to his desk and opened a drawer. I'll destroy the chip I removed, but the one in the X-ray, it's deeper, embedded in the muscle. I can't remove it here. It's too risky without surgery. Then take him to a hospital, Myra said. Please. He turned. And tell them what? That we found a weaponized wolf cub and removed secret tech from its body? She fell silent. Dr. Ellis sighed. We have to stay quiet. For now. Suddenly, Ash stirred. He whimpered softly, one paw twitching. Mira rushed over. I'm here, she whispered. It's okay. Ash blinked, his golden eye cloudy with sleep. Dr. Ellis lowered his voice. We need to buy time. I'll give him antibiotics and pain meds, but we need answers. I still don't know who made that chip. Myra looked at him. Can we trace it? He hesitated. Maybe, if I take a photo and match the serial numbers. Then do it, she said. Please, he's all alone. If someone did this to him, they shouldn't be allowed to do it again. Dr. Ellis nodded. All right. He took out his phone and carefully snapped a picture of the chip in the vial. Then he placed it in a lid container and sealed it shut. Until we know more, he said. We say nothing. Not to your mom. Not to anyone. Myra nodded. I won't let them take him. The drive home was silent. Ash rested in a soft crate beside her, eyes barely open. She kept one hand inside, brushing his fur. When they got home, she carried the crate into her room. Her mom called from the kitchen. Everything okay, honey? Yeah, Myra replied. Just tired. That night, Mira sat on the floor with Ash. He licked her hand, weak but awake. She whispered stories to him about how she used to play in these woods when she was 5, how her dad used to teach her how to whistle, how she hated loud noises. Ash listened. Or maybe he just liked the sound of her voice. The next morning, she woke up early and snuck into the vet clinic before it opened. Dr. Ellis was already there. He looked tired. I found something, he said, motioning her over. On his screen was a blurry black and white document with bold letters across the top. Mira squinted. Fenrir Project? She read aloud. He nodded. It's old, buried in some archive database. No images. Just one line I recognized, the chip serial format. It matches. What is it? Some kind of classified program. Military-sponsored. Experimental animals. Behavior testing. Most of it's redacted. She swallowed hard. You think Ash is from that? I don't think, he said. I know. Myra dropped into a chair. Why would anyone do this? Wolves aren't weapons. They are if you raise them like one. She stared at him. He's not dangerous. He's scared. He cries when I leave the room. I believe you, he said gently. But whoever started this project, they didn't care about kindness. They cared about control. She looked at Ash, lying curled in the crate. He didn't ask for any of this. No, Dr. Ellis said, but now he's in it. And so are we. Later that day, Mira walked through the woods behind her house with Ash in her arms. She found a quiet spot near the creek and sat down. Who would hurt you like that? She whispered. You're just a baby. Ash nuzzled into her neck. Tears filled her eyes. I'll protect you, no matter what, I swear. In that moment, she didn't care how big the world was. She only cared about the fragile heartbeat pressed against her chest. And deep in the forest, somewhere far beyond the trees, a signal post. Someone still knew where Ash was. Mira sat in the back room of the clinic, her knees pulled to her chest. Ash lay quietly on a blanket beside her. His ears twitched every few seconds, like he was listening to something only he could hear. Dr. Ellis had gone up front when the bell rang. Myra stayed hidden like they planned, but she kept the door cracked open just enough to hear. Footsteps. 2 sets. Heavy. Good afternoon, one man said. His voice was deep and flat. Dr. Ellis replied, Can I help you? We're looking for a missing specimen. Myra's stomach dropped. The second man spoke. Small, male, likely wounded. Last known signal was near the state forest. You seen anything unusual? There was a pause. Myra's fingers tightened around the blanket. Then Dr. Ellis answered, I'm afraid not. Just a few dogs and farm animals. No wolves. Ash lifted his head slowly. Mira pressed her finger to her lips. No wild animals brought in? The man asked again. No, Dr. Ellis repeated, but his voice cracked. Nothing like that. There was a sound, like someone stepping forward. You sure, Doc? We've got clearance to search if needed. Mira's heart pounded in her ears. She reached for Ash, whispering, Stay still. Please don't make a sound. Ash didn't move. He just stared at her. Calm, Doc. Then Dr. Ellis said, You're welcome to look around. Nothing to hide. Mira's eyes widened, but then she heard it. The squeak of a door opening. Not hers. The supply closet. I'll be quick. One of the men muttered. They were bluffing, just trying to scare him. But they were getting close. Dr. Ellis added quickly, Just mind the equipment. Some of it's fragile. Footsteps moved away from the back room. Mira let out a shaky breath. Ash pressed his nose into her hand, as if telling her it was okay. Outside, the conversation continued. Any cameras around here? Dr. Ellis answered. Only one out front. Motion sensor. Never had a reason for more. Another. Pause. Mind if we come back tomorrow? I'll be here, Dr. Ellis said. Good. We will be too. The bell over the door jingled again. The van outside started and drove off. Myra waited 5 full minutes before stepping out. Dr. Ellis stood by the counter, his hands shaking. Are they gone? She asked. He turned slowly. For now, they knew, she whispered. They didn't say his name, but they knew. They called him a specimen, Dr. Ellis said quietly. Not a cub, not an animal. Like he's a thing. Myra looked down at Ash. He's not a thing. Dr. Ellis rubbed his forehead. They had no badges, no agency, nothing official. Just uniforms and cold eyes. Do you think they're military? Or something worse, he muttered. Ash stood, shaky but alert. He walked up to Dr. Ellis and sniffed his leg. The vet bent down. They'll come back, and next time they won't ask politely. So what do we do? He looked up at her. We disappear. Myra blinked. What? Yumi and Ash. We leave tonight. I know a place, off-grid, remote. I can't just leave my mom, Myra said. She'll call the police. You don't have to tell her everything, he said. Just enough to keep her calm. She shook her head. She already thinks I'm acting strange. Dr. Ellis looked her in the eyes. If they take Ash, they won't bring him back. Ash let out a low, soft growl. Myra swallowed hard. Then we run. That night, as the sun went down, she packed a small bag. Just clothes, food, and Ash's medicine. Her mom called from the kitchen. Where are you going? Myra answered, I'm just staying over at Emma's for a project. You didn't tell me about any project. It's last minute, she said, forcing a laugh. I'll be back tomorrow. Her mom didn't look convinced, but she nodded. Be safe. Myra stepped out into the night with Ash in her arms. Dr. Ellis was waiting at the end of the street in his old truck. They didn't speak as they drove into the dark. Behind them, the black van returned, but it was already too late. Ash was gone, and this time, they weren't going to find him so easily. Rain hit the cabin roof like drumming fingers. Mira paced the floor, clutching a towel in one hand and the flashlight in the other. Ash sat by the door, ears twitching at every sound. Something had changed since they arrived in the woods. He was restless. Dr. Ellis was in the other room, typing nonstop, trying to decode more of the Fenrir files he found online. Mira had tried distracting Ash with food and toys, but he just stared out the window. You okay? She asked, kneeling next to him. Ash didn't look at her. His eyes were on the trees. His body was tense. Then lightning flashed, followed by a loud crack of thunder. Ash jumped, let out a sharp whimper, then bolted for the back door. Wait, Ash! Mira shouted, but he was already gone. She ran outside without thinking, barefoot, the flashlight swinging wildly in her hand. Rain soaked her in seconds. Ash, she screamed. Come back. The woods were darker than she remembered. Every branch looked like a claw. The mud sucked at her feet, but she kept moving. Dr. Ellis came running from the cabin, flashlight in hand. What happened? He ran, she said, breathless. He just ran. Split up, he said. Follow the creek. I'll check the trail. Mira nodded and ran toward the sound of water. The storm didn't let up. Branches snapped under her feet. She kept calling. Ash! Please, it's me. But there was no answer. For hours she searched, slipping, tripping, calling his name until her throat burned. Her hands were scraped, her feet numb. But she didn't stop. At one point, she dropped to her knees, sobbing. Please don't leave me, she whispered. You're all I have. Just as she was about to give up, she saw something by the riverbank. A shadow. Then, another. Then three. She froze. Her flashlight flickered, then steadied. Ash was there, limping, soaked, but alive. He stood near the edge of the water. And next to him were three wild wolves. Big, silent, watching. Myra didn't move. Ash turned slowly toward her. His tail didn't wag, but he didn't run either. Then the strangest thing happened. The wolves didn't growl, didn't attack. They bowed their heads. Myra blinked. What is this? She whispered. Ash looked back at the wolves, then at her. And he walked to her, slowly, carefully. He pressed his nose to her hand. I thought I lost you, she cried. Why did you leave? He didn't answer, of course. But he stayed beside her. The wolves stayed still, watching. Then one by one, they turned and disappeared into the trees. Dr. Ellis appeared minutes later, panting. I heard howling. Are you okay? I found him, Myra said, holding Ash close. But I don't think I was the only one looking. They walked back to the cabin together, Ash limping between them. Something had changed. The wild had called him, and it hadn't rejected him. It had bowed. Ash hadn't stopped staring into the trees since they got back. Even with his limp, his body stayed tense. Mira could feel it. Something was pulling him. Dr. Ellis watched him from the porch. He's not running again, he said, but he's not settled either. Mira looked down at Ash. He saw something out there. Something we didn't. That night when the stars came out, Ash stood at the door. He looked at Myra, then back at the woods. You want me to follow? She asked. Ash let out a soft huff and stepped outside. Myra grabbed her flashlight and followed. They walked in silence, deeper into the forest than they'd ever gone. No trails, no lights, Just branches brushing her arms and the sound of Ash's quiet paws ahead. After nearly an hour, Ash stopped. He looked back at her once, then disappeared between two mossy boulders. Myra squeezed through, heart pounding. What she saw on the other side took her breath away. It was a valley, hidden, sunken between walls of rock and trees, untouched, and it was full of wolves, dozens of them, lying in clusters. Some limped. Some had scars across their faces. One was missing an eye. Another dragged a useless leg. But they were alive, breathing, watching. And standing in the middle was Ash. He didn't flinch, didn't bow. He stood tall, head high. The wolves didn't growl. One by one, they lowered their heads. Myra whispered, "What is this place?" She stepped forward carefully. None of the wolves moved to stop her. Ash turned to her, calm, like he belonged. She knelt beside him, whispering, "You've been here before, haven't you?" He didn't answer, but the way the others looked at him, like they remembered, made her wonder. Dr. Ellis had said he was born in a lab. But this wasn't a lab. This was a sanctuary, a place for the broken, the hunted, the ones who got away. Myra stayed by Ash's side as the wolves circled closer. Not to threaten, to welcome. A large black wolf limped over and sniffed Myra's hand, then nudged Ash's face. Ash didn't back away. He nuzzled back. She blinked. "Fast. They know you. They trust you." Ash looked up at her, then howled, long, low, and full of something she didn't have words for. The wolves joined in, and in that moment, deep in a hidden valley no map would ever show, Myra realized she wasn't just hiding a cub anymore. She was standing beside something wild, something once broken, now rising again. Ash stayed quiet the whole way back from the hidden valley. He didn't limp anymore, but Myra could feel something in him had shifted. He wasn't scared. He wasn't lost. He was remembering. Back at the cabin, Dr. Ellis looked up from his laptop. "You two were gone a while." Myra nodded. "We found something. A place full of wolves." "Like Ash." Dr. Ellis frowned. "Like him how?" "Wounded, scarred, but alive. And they knew him, Doc. They bowed to him." He stood slowly. "I need to see him again." Ash sat calmly as Dr. Ellis examined him. He checked his eyes, ears, pulse, then lifted one of his front paws. Suddenly, he froze. "What is it?" Myra asked. Dr. Ellis didn't speak. He brushed back the fur near Ash's inner paw pad, gently wiping with a damp cloth, and there it was. A faint mark, a burned-in symbol, circular, with jagged edges and numbers beneath. Dr. Ellis whispered, "No, no, no." Myra stepped closer. "What does it mean?" He looked at her, his face pale. "It's a lab symbol. I've seen it once. Years ago, in a leaked photo. Ash wasn't just captured. He was born inside a lab." Myra stared at the mark. "They made him? Or bred him? Engineered? Raised for something?" Ash didn't growl. He just stared at the floor. Myra whispered, "He's not just a cub." Dr. Ellis nodded slowly. "He's part of an experiment." Myra swallowed hard. "So those wolves we saw, they're not wild either?" "I don't think so," he said. "They're survivors. Maybe from the same place." Ash looked up. His golden eyes didn't blink. Dr. Ellis whispered, "This wasn't just about tracking. It was control." Myra knelt down beside Ash. "You're not theirs anymore. You hear me?" Ash leaned into her hand, closing his eyes. Dr. Ellis grabbed a notepad. "We need to get that symbol documented. Fast. If anyone sees it again, we'll know where he came from." Myra whispered, "We already know where he belongs." Ash didn't need a cage or a lab. He needed the wild. But now, they needed answers. Before. The people who made that mark came to take him back. Dr. Ellis sat in silence, staring at the mark on Ash's paw. Myra didn't say anything either. Her mind was spinning. They burned it into him, Dr. Ellis muttered. Like property. Ash curled beside Myra's legs, head low, as if he could feel the weight of what they'd discovered. That night, while Ash slept, Myra couldn't stop thinking. Her grandfather used to tell stories, strange stories, about secret patrols, off-limit zones, weird sounds deep in the forest. He had been a forest ranger for 30 years before he passed. She grabbed a flashlight and climbed up into the attic. Boxes were stacked everywhere. Books, uniforms, old radios. She pulled out a box labeled 1979 to 2009. The smell of dust and paper hit her nose. Inside were journals, maps, and one small locked tin box. She grabbed it, heart thudding. Back downstairs, she searched the kitchen drawers and found a thin screwdriver. It took a few shaky minutes, but the lock popped open. Inside were old papers, yellowed and curled. The first few were ranger reports, injured animals, fires, lost hikers. But then, one page caught her eye. At the top, in faded ink, were the words, Project Fenrir, Behavioral Conditioning for Combat Wolves. Her mouth went dry. She read the date, 12 years ago. The paper listed coordinates, test zones, observation notes. Then, she saw a photo, blurry and black and white, of a metal cage in the woods. Inside it, a small wolf pup sat alone, wires attached to its neck. Myra felt sick. She ran back to the cabin, clutching the file. Doc, she said, breathless, you need to see this. He looked up as she spread the papers on the table. His face went pale. This confirms it, he whispered. It wasn't just theory. It was real. Project Fenrir was a program. Myra tapped the photo. They were testing pups, isolated, wired. Dr. Ellis read another page. Stimulus response. Control. Emotional suppression. Environmental triggers. Myra clenched her fists. They were trying to erase their instincts, to make them weapons. He finished. Ash lifted his head from the floor. His golden eyes scanned the papers like he knew, like he remembered. Myra whispered, he was born into this. They never meant for him to be a real animal. But something happened, Dr. Ellis said. He escaped. Or someone helped him. She opened a second folder inside the box. Handwritten notes, not typed. My grandpa wrote. These, Myra said. Look at this line. Found print near restricted area. Cub was limping. Refused to leave my side. Dr. Ellis raised his eyes. You think? Myra nodded slowly. What if Ash isn't the first one he found? What if Grandpa helped one escape? Dr. Ellis leaned back. This runs deep. Government tags. Secret labs. Your grandpa must have seen too much. Myra whispered. What if they silenced him? Ash stepped toward the papers and placed his paw, the marked one, on the word Fenrir. Neither of them spoke. Dr. Ellis finally said, if they know you have these files, they'll come for them. Myra looked at Ash. Then we protect them. Just like we protect him. She gathered the papers, folded them carefully, and hid them in her backpack. I'm not just keeping a secret anymore, she said. I'm carrying proof. Ash stood beside her, taller now, stronger. And Myra finally understood. This wasn't just about saving a wolf cub. It was about exposing the truth. Behind what he was never supposed to become, the forest was quiet again. But Myra didn't trust it. Not after what they found in the attic. Not after what those files proved. She clutched her backpack tighter. Inside were the Fenrir documents, her grandfather's hidden truth. She didn't know what to do with them yet, only that she had to keep them safe. Dr. Ellis had gone to town for supplies. He told her not to leave the cabin. But Ash kept pacing by the door, ears alert, tail stiff. You hear something? She asked. Ash didn't growl. He didn't make a sound. He just stared toward the trees like he was waiting for something to come up. Myra hesitated, then opened the door. "Fine," she whispered. "We'll go, but only a little." Ash led her into the woods, slower than usual, not like the other times when he ran ahead. This time, he stayed close. Too close, Myra kept, looking over her shoulder. Every branch snap made her jump. And she saw a just ahead, near a split in the trail. Stood the black van. Half dash hidden behind the trees. Engine off. No sound. Ash froze. Myra stepped back. "We have to go." But before she could move, a man stepped out from behind the trunk. Tall, pale, dressed in dark gray. The same face she remembered through the van window. "Stay back," she shouted, grabbing a branch from the ground. He didn't raise a weapon. He didn't need to. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. Ash stepped between them, growling now. Deep, warning growls that made Myra's stomach twist. The man held up both hands. "Easy, boy. You know me." Ash's ears twitched. The man's voice softened. "You remember, don't you?" Myra glanced at Ash. He wasn't moving, just watching. The man took a small step forward. Ash growled louder and snapped his jaws, but still didn't lunge. "I'm not here to take him," the man said. "They are, but not me. Who are you?" Myra demanded. He looked at her, then back at Ash. "I was there when he opened his eyes. First time he walked, I fed him. I wasn't part of what they did later." Myra's grip on the branch tightened. "Then why are you here now?" "To stop them," he said. "To warn you." Ash crept closer, not attacking, just standing firm between them. The man slowly reached into his coat. Myra flinched. "Don't!" she yelled. But it wasn't a weapon. It was a photo. He held it out. This was him, before they turned him into a project. Ash stepped closer. Myra grabbed his fur, but he didn't pull away. The photo showed a younger Ash, smaller, thinner, in a cage. "Alone." Myra whispered. "What do you want from us?" "Nothing," the man said. "I wanted to see if he'd remember me. That's all." Ash stared straight at him. Not blinking. The man lowered the photo and took a shaky breath. "He does." Then he turned, slowly, dropped the small pistol from his jacket to the ground. Myra's voice cracked. "Why are you walking away?" "Because if they come and find me here, they'll know I helped you." He glanced back one last time. "Protect him, girl. He's more than a wolf. He's the mistake they're afraid of." Then he vanished into the woods. Myra stood frozen. Ash came to her side, pressing against her leg. She whispered, "You didn't attack him." Ash looked up at her. She knelt beside him. You remembered love. And for the first time in days, she felt the fear lift, just a little. Ash wouldn't sleep anymore. Every night, he paced the cabin. Slow, steady steps, ears alert, eyes on the door. Myra watched him from her bed, heart tight. She knew something was wrong. It started a few days ago. They went back to the hidden valley just like before. But this time, it was quieter. Too quiet. Half the wolves were missing. The old black one with the limp gone. The one-eyed female gone. No signs of struggle. No blood. Just empty space. Myra stood in the middle of the valley, whispering. Where did they go? Ash didn't move. He sniffed the ground, circled the clearing, then howled. But no one answered. Dr. Ellis was waiting back at the cabin when they returned. You're late, he said. Everything all right? No, Myra replied. Wolves are gone. Not just hiding, gone. Ash stood by the window all evening. He didn't eat. He didn't rest. Dr. Ellis read the files again, flipping page after page. If someone's targeting them again, it's the program. Mira sat beside Ash. They're taking them one by one, quietly. I warned you, Dr. Ellis said. Once they realized Ash was alive, they'd go back for the others. Ash growled low, deep in his chest. He stepped outside and stared into the trees. Myra followed him, whispering, "What do you feel out there?" He didn't answer. But he didn't need to, because that night the forest changed. No howls, no movement, just silence. Myra couldn't sleep. She stood by the window, watching Ash watch the darkness. Then she whispered, "The calm is ending, isn't it?" Ash didn't look at her. He just kept staring into the night. And somewhere, far beyond what she could see, something stared back. Myra hadn't left Ash's side in days. He barely slept, barely ate. Every night he stood by the door, eyes locked on the forest. She knew he sensed something coming. She just didn't know when. Dr. Ellis was tense too. He barely spoke anymore. Every time the wind brushed against the window, he flinched. He kept checking his phone, pacing the floor, avoiding Myra's eyes. Then one night, after Ash finally curled up and Myra dozed off beside him, Dr. Ellis stepped outside to make a call. But Myra wasn't asleep. She followed him, barefoot and silent. She stopped behind the porch wall and listened. "They're here," Dr. Ellis whispered into the phone. "I can't stall anymore. They're threatening to pull my license. They know about the girl, about the files, about the wolves." Myra's heart dropped. He paused, then added, "I'll give them the location tomorrow. But you promised no blood, no violence." Her breath caught. She backed away, shaking. Ash was right. The calm was over. The next morning, she said nothing. She acted normal, packed a small bag, just in case. Ash followed her everywhere. Even as weak as he was, he knew something wasn't right. At noon, Dr. Ellis told them, "We need to head to the clinic. I want to run more tests, just to make sure the chip isn't activating again." Myra forced a nod. "Okay." But inside, her stomach twisted. By the time they reached the clinic, it was too late. The van was already there. But this time, it wasn't just one. 3 black vehicles. No plates. 6 men in dark uniforms standing in the shade. Myra stopped in. Her tracks. "What is this?" Dr. Ellis avoided her eyes. "I'm sorry. I didn't want this." Ash growled, low and steady. One of the men stepped forward. "Bring the animal." "No," Myra yelled. "You can't take him." Another man pulled out a tranquilizer gun. Ash stood in front of Myra. Teeth bared. Dr. Ellis raised a hand. "Don't hurt him." "You promised." The first man didn't flinch, just followed the plan. Myra screamed. "You lied to us." "I had no choice," Dr. Ellis shouted. "They threatened everything." Ash lunged, not to attack, but to run. But the dart hit him before he could reach the door. He stumbled, eyes wide, legs giving out. Myra caught him as he collapsed. "Ash, stay with me," he whimpered once. Then went still. 2 men grabbed him and shoved him into a metal cage. Myra ran after them, pounding her fists against the cage door. "Don't let them hurt him, please." They didn't answer. The van doors slammed shut. The engine roared. And just like that, Ash was gone. The valley was raided the same afternoon. Rest of the wolves scattered, but Myra didn't move. She sat outside the clinic, shaking, broken, her hands still clutching Ash's collar. She whispered, "You trusted us." Dr. Ellis stood behind her, trembling. "I didn't know they'd take him like that. I thought I'd have more time." Myra didn't look at him. He wasn't a project. He was my friend. Ash had been more than an animal. He had been family. And now, he was in a cage again. Just like they always planned. Myra couldn't sleep. Not after what happened. Not after watching Ash being dragged away like he was nothing. She hadn't spoken to Dr. Ellis since that moment. He tried to explain. Tried to say he didn't know. But Myra didn't believe him anymore. She waited until midnight, when the clinic lights were off and the roads were empty. Then she snuck in through the back door. She still had the keys from the time she helped clean the supply closet. She crept down the hallway, past the exam room, past the kennels. She stopped in front of the office. The door was locked. She jiggled the handle. Nothing. She pulled a pin from her hair and slid it into the lock, just like she'd seen online. It didn't work at first, but on the third try, she heard the click. She stepped inside and turned on the computer. Her hand shook as she searched through the folders. Most were just medical records, animal photos, names of local pets. Then she saw it. A folder labeled Do Not OPE and Secure Transfer. She clicked. It was password protected. Mira stared at the keyboard, heart pounding. Then she typed. The folder opened. Inside were documents, maps, and one video. No title, just a TIMESTAMP. She clicked. The screen flickered. Then the image appeared. Ash. Only. He was smaller, barely walking, maybe 2 weeks old. His eyes were confused, blinking against the bright light. He sat in the middle of a steel room, wires attached to his back. A speaker above him crackled with sharp, piercing sounds. Ash yelped, flinched, tried to hide. A voice said, "Turn it up." Another added, "Make him obey." A shock went through the wires. Ash screamed. Myra covered her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. She watched as the cub tried to run. A man stepped in with gloves, forcing Ash to sit still. Another voice spoke. "We'll break the instinct. Build him from the ground up." The video ended. Myra sat frozen, staring at the black screen. She whispered, "They trained him to be a weapon." She backed away from the desk, numb. Her legs felt weak. This was never about science. Never about saving species. It was torture. Conditioning. Programming a baby to forget how to be free. She pulled out her phone and snapped photos of the screen. Every file. Every word. They didn't want anyone to see this. But Myra wasn't going to let it stay hidden anymore. Ash didn't belong to them. He never had. And now, the world had to know what they did. The lab was buried deep beneath the government. Complex, cold, silent, controlled. Cameras followed Ash's every move. Wires were still strapped to his body, but this time, he didn't flinch when the doors opened. 2 men entered the room, both wearing masks and gloves. One held a tablet. The other pressed a button on the wall. "Initiate Sequence 2. The first one said. A loud screech echoed through the chamber. Bright lights flashed. Ash didn't move. The man frowned. "Why isn't he responding?" "Try the next tone," the other muttered. The noise shifted, sharp, painful, rising in pitch. It would have broken a normal wolf. Made him obey, crawl, bow, but Ash stood taller. He turned his head slowly and locked eyes with them. He growled once, low and deep. The man dropped the tablet. Something's wrong. Ash didn't attack. He didn't run. He just stared back at the edge of the forest. Mira held her breath. She and Dr. Ellis had followed the tracker embedded in the files. It led them to this facility. "I don't have a plan," she whispered, "but I have to try." Dr. Ellis nodded. "You get him out. I'll stall them." Mira snuck in through a side vent, crawling in the dark. Her hands scraped against steel. Every heartbeat screamed in her ears. She reached the end and dropped down into the hallway. Ahead, a door with a red light buzzed. She typed the passcode she'd found in the folder, 0412. The light turned green. She slipped inside the observation room and saw him. Ash. He was in a cage surrounded by glass. 2 men stood just feet from him, frozen. Ash hadn't looked away. Then, Mira stepped into the room. "Ash," she whispered. His ears twitched. "Myra, no!" One man shouted, reaching for the shock trigger. Ash snapped, not with rage, but speed. He lunged toward the glass, cracked it, then turned, and ran to her. The men backed away. Stunned, Myra opened the cage. Ash stepped out, slow, calm. She dropped to her knees. "It's me. I came back." Ash didn't growl, didn't bark. He nuzzled her hand, gently, softly, like he did the night she first found him in the forest. She held his face. "You remembered." The lights flashed red. Sirens blared. "Security breach in containment room 4. A voice echoed. Ash stood in front of her now. Not like a weapon, like a guardian. The men didn't move. "He's not listening to commands," one whispered. "He's bonded." Myra stood. "You can't control love." Ash growled, and this time they ran. She led him down the hallway, heart pounding. Footsteps echoing. Dr. Ellis met them at the exit. "I shut down the locks," he said. "But we've got 30 seconds. Ash didn't hesitate. They ran together. Girl, Wolf, and the man who once betrayed them, toward freedom. And behind them, the experiment fell apart. Because the Wolf didn't obey fear. He remembered love. They didn't sleep after the escape. Mira, Ash, and Dr. Ellis hid in an old ranger cabin deep in the woods. No cell signal. No lights. Just the sounds of the forest returning. Ash was free. But the truth still wasn't Dot. So Myra did the only thing she could. She uploaded everything. The files, the lab footage, the photos of Ash, every terrible detail they tried to bury. She sent it to every news outlet, every journalist, every wildlife agency. She didn't hide her name. Within hours, the story went viral. Girl exposes secret Wolf weapon program. Dr. Ellis watched the news in silence. Ash lay beside him, curled up like nothing had changed. Myra stood by the window. "They know now." "Doctor," Ellis whispered, "they're going to come again. Only this time, it won't be quiet." But something unexpected happened. The public didn't stay quiet either. People rallied. Animal rights groups called for action. Scientists denied involvement. Politicians panicked. And within days, the government responded. They held a press conference. Gray suits, cold faces. "We confirmed that Project Fenrir was a discontinued behavioral study involving early-stage animal conditioning," one man said. "The wolf in question has shown signs of advanced cognition. Due to public pressure, we will no longer hold him in federal custody." Mira watched on a tiny screen. In the cabin, her heart skipped. Then the official added, "But due to the animal's altered nature, he cannot return to domestic life. We are releasing him to protected wilderness land, monitored only by remote devices. Let the wild decide." Myra's hand shook. "Not to me?" she whispered. "After everything?" Dr. Ellis didn't answer. The next morning, they brought Ash to the edge of the forest under government escort. Reporters stood behind barriers. Ash stepped out of the transport crate slowly. No leash. No muzzle. One by one, cameras clicked. Myra waited just outside the cordon. A man in uniform said, "You're not allowed to follow." She looked at Ash. "He's not going anywhere without me." The man hesitated, then stepped aside. Myra walked toward Ash. He met her halfway. She knelt and whispered, "You're free now. No more cages. No more wires. Just the woods. The sky. The life you were meant to have." Ash leaned into her. Her throat tightened. "I want to come with you. But they won't let me." Ash licked her hand. She stood, tears in her eyes. "You'll be okay. I believe it." Ash turned to the trees, then paused. He looked back once. Just once. Then he ran. Not afraid. Not broken, but free. And the forest took him back. They brought Ash back to the valley at dawn. Same trail, same rocks, same wind brushing through the trees. But this time, there were no wires. No cages. No men in suits. Just Mira. And the wolf she'd raised from a whimpering cub. Ash stepped into the clearing, slow but sure. He sniffed the ground, looked up at the cliffs. This was the place where the others had bowed to him. The place where the wild had welcomed him home. Myra knelt beside him. "This is it," she whispered. "You're free now." Ash looked at her. Not like a pet. Not like a wild animal either, but like someone who knew what this moment meant. She smiled, even as tears ran down her cheeks. "You don't need me anymore. But I'll always need you." Ash licked her face once. Just once. Then stepped back. He turned toward the trees. And howled. It wasn't angry. It wasn't loud just to be loud. It was long, deep, and filled with something Myra couldn't describe. Pain. Hope. Goodbye. Then, from somewhere deep in the woods, another howl answered. And another. And another. Myra turned. One by one, wolves stepped. Out of the shadows. Not all, but many. The black one with the limp. The one-eyed female. The younger ones. They didn't attack. They didn't run. They came to Ash. He didn't bow. He stood tall, then walked into the circle. Myra stood frozen. Ash looked back once, eyes glowing gold. Then he disappeared into the pack. She whispered, "Goodbye, Ash." And for a moment, the forest was still. Then came one last howl. And it echoed long after he was gone. The forest didn't look the same anymore. New trees had grown. The trail where she used to run with Ash was now overgrown. The old ranger cabin had collapsed, but Mira still knew the way. Every step, every turn, even with her eyes closed. Years had passed. She wasn't 12 anymore. She'd grown taller, stronger. She spoke at wildlife forums now. Volunteered at shelters. Gave lectures in classrooms where kids stared wide-eyed at the story of the girl and the wolf who was never meant to be born. But none of it ever felt as real as when she was here, at the forest's edge, on the old ridge, where it had all begun. Every full moon, she returned. Always alone. She'd spread her blanket near the stump where Ash once sat, alert and watchful, guarding her like a soldier guarding his last hope. She'd sit with a thermos of tea and stare into the trees. And wait, she never expected him to come out. Not anymore. But she still hoped to hear him just once. Sometimes her friends would ask, "Don't you think he's gone by now?" Mira would smile softly and say, "You don't understand." And they didn't, because they didn't know what. It meant to raise something wild, to love something the world tried to break. Ash wasn't just a wolf. He was a memory stitched into her bones. She still remembered the night he was taken, the night she broke into the lab, the moment he looked at her through the glass, not with fear, but with something deeper. Recognition. She remembered the press conference, the words, "Let the wild decide." She remembered how he looked back only once before vanishing into the trees. And then silence. Until that night. It was early spring. The air still held a bite. The moon was high and full. Myra had just finished telling herself she'd leave in 5 more minutes. Then she heard it, low at first. Then rising. One long, haunting howl. It didn't come from far. It came from deep within the valley. She stood, heart pounding. Another howl followed, shorter but steady. Then silence again. But that first sound, she knew it, not just by pitch, not just by instinct. She knew it like a name. "Ash," she whispered, her eyes filled with tears. She didn't move toward it. She didn't need to, because she understood. That howl wasn't a cry for help. It was a message. "I'm here. I remember. I'm free." She sank to her knees and covered her face. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. Later, when she returned to the city, people asked what kept her going. She never gave them the full answer. But once, a little boy in her school group asked, "Do you think he loved you back?" Mira smiled. "He didn't need words for me to know," she said. "He chose not to attack. He chose to remember. That's love." The boy blinked. "Will you ever see him again?" She looked toward the woods beyond the glass window. "I don't have to," she replied, "because every time the moon rises, I still hear him at night." And that was enough, because in every howl that touched the wind, in every tree that bent beneath the sky, Ash lived on, as a project, not as an experiment, but as a legend, whispered to those who still believed in impossible things, and loved them anyway. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and mention where you're listening from. Did this story touch your heart? Give it a thumbs up, share it around, and drop your location in the comments.